Good day, grade 10 learners! Welcome to Adventure TV. Another year, another challenge, but learning defies distance and time. Despite the pandemic that we are currently experiencing, I am very excited to teach you another lesson. Welcome to our English class. I am Ann Gervacio, your today's teacher, and I will guide you throughout this lesson. First, let me give you the objectives. In this lesson, we will appraise the unity of plot, setting, and characterization in a material viewed to achieve the writer's purpose. Be able to analyze the elements of short story. Be able to write a short story containing all the elements. Are you all excited to learn a new lesson? If yes, make sure that you have your module, ballpen, and notebook with you and join me in this new adventure. Hi there! Do you still remember the story of Snow White? Great, because today we will get to know Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Lend me your ears and let's begin.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, written by Grimm Brothers, summarized by Shreya Sharma. Once upon a time, there was a big and beautiful kingdom in which lived a king and a queen. They had a gorgeous daughter with black hair and fair skin, and her name was Snow White. Over the years, the princess grew up becoming more and more beautiful and kind. But sadly, her mother died and went to heaven. After a while, the king had married the new queen who turned out to be an evil witch. One day, the witch asked her magic mirror a question. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful woman in this kingdom?" And the mirror said, "Snow White it is." The witch queen got very angry on hearing this. She ordered the soldier to take her away from the kingdom and kill her. The soldier obeyed the queen. He took the princess to the forest but could not kill her because she was a very nice person. Then he said, "Go away, Snow White. I will spare your life, but don't ever come back because the queen witch wants to kill you. Go away now." She ran and ran with all her strength through the middle of the forest. She was very tired. Then far away, she saw a tiny house and decided to get inside. When she came in, she saw that everything is quite small, and as she was tired, she laid down on the little bed and fell asleep. Soon after, 7 dwarfs came into the house. When they saw Snow White, they got surprised and said, "What is that girl doing here?" After some time, she became friends with the 7 dwarfs. She cooked food and danced with them. But one day, the queen witch found out that the princess was still alive, so she took a secret potion and turned herself into an old lady to be able to go to the dwarf's house without being noticed. The witch knocked on the little house door, and when Snow White opened the door, she saw an old lady who was the witch in disguise. Witch said, "Beautiful child, take this delicious apple. I am sure that you have not tried anything like this before." She took the apple and bit it without knowing the evil witch has poisoned the apple. She fell on the floor after taking the bite and never woke up. The little dwarfs got very sad and decided to place her on the flower bed. One day, a handsome prince came to the forest on a beautiful horse. When he saw Snow White, he was so mesmerized by her beauty that he fell in love with her and kissed her. At that very moment, she woke up because the kiss broke the witch's magic. She was pleased to see the handsome prince in front of her, and she also fell in love with him. The prince and Snow White lived happily ever after, and the witch got so mad that she broke the mirror and never heard the mirror ever again.
The story is really good, isn't it? A fairy tale dream with a happy ever after. Now that we have read the story, what do you think made this text a short story? Very good! It has elements that compose and build the story. For today's discussion, we are going to talk about the elements of the short story. But before that, let us first define what is a short story.
According to Britannica, a short story is a brief fictional prose narrative that is shorter than a novel and that usually deals with only a few characters. It is usually concerned with a single effect conveyed in only one or a few significant episodes or scenes. Also, based on Edgar Allan Poe's essay, The Philosophy of Composition, a short story should be read in one sitting.
Now that we already know the definition of short story, let's proceed on the elements of the short story. According to Carol Despaw Fawcett, there are 6 elements of a great short story. The first one is the characters. The next is settings, followed by point of view, then plot, next is conflict, and lastly is theme. Now, let's have an in-depth discussion about these elements.
Character. The term character has 2 meanings: a character in a fictional story or person's characteristics. Characters in a work of fiction can be A. Protagonist, the central character in the story. All major events are significant to this character. Antagonist, the main character, opponent, or enemy. Characters can be ground, characters with fully developed personalities who are affected by the events of the story. They can learn, grow, or deteriorate by the end of the story. Characters are most convincing when they are consistent, motivated, and lifelike, just like real people. Flat. Characters that are flat or one-dimensional. Dynamic. A character who undergoes change and grows throughout the course of a story. Static. The character does not change. Setting. A story setting refers to the time and place in which it is set. The setting is crucial in certain stories, but it is not in others. There are a number of factors to consider when considering how setting influences a story. Setting. The setting of the story. Where does the action takes place? Setting. When is the story set? What historical period, time of day, year, and so on. Weather. Is it raining, sunny, stormy? Social circumstances. How does the protagonist's day-to-day life go? Is there any local color in the story? Writing that concentrates on a certain location's speech, clothes, mannerism, customs, mood or atmosphere. At the start of the story, what mood or atmosphere is created? Is it a happy or a spooky scene? Point of view refers to who is telling or narrating a story and how they tell it. There are 5 different types of point of view. First-person point of view. The story is told from an individual point of view, describing something that is happening to them. The key pronouns for the first-person point of view are I, me, my. Second-person point of view. All about you. Told from the reader's point of view. The reader seems to become part of the story. The key pronouns for second-person point of view are you, your. Third-person omniscient. Omniscient is a fancy word that means all-knowing. This point of view means that the story is told from the perspective of a narrator who knows the thoughts and feelings of many characters in the story. Shows us that many characters in the story are thinking and feeling. Third-person limited. Sticks closely to one character in the story. This point of view doesn't mean you tell the story entirely from the one character's perspective using I. It can be more useful than the first-person point of view because you aren't trapped in the character's head. You can show both how they feel and what's going on around them. It is useful when you want to deeply develop a reader's relationship with one character. Third-person objective reduces the coloring that the writer puts into the narrative. Instead of creating a story in which the reader knows everything about what the characters think and feel, this point of view tells the story from the perspective of a total outsider. The reader has to judge the characters by their action and dialogue alone. It creates distance between the reader and the characters. It also adds an air of mystery. Plot. The series of events in a novel or play that the author prepares to develop the primary theme. The plot is a logical planned sequence of events with a beginning, middle, and end. There is usually only one plot in a short narrative. As a result, it may be read in a single sitting. Plot is made up of 5 components. Exposition. The first part of the plot establishes the main characters, protagonists, and settings. We got to know who's who, as well as when and where the story takes place. At this point, the reader is just getting to know the world of the story and what it's going to be all about. Rising action. In this part of the plot, the primary conflict is introduced, if it hasn't been already, and is built upon to create tension both within the story and the reader, who should ideally be feeling more and more drawn to the text. The conflict may affect one character or multiple characters. Climax. This is the critical moment that all the rising action has been building up to, and the point at which the overarching conflict is finally addressed. What will the characters do? And what will happen as a result? Tensions are highest here, instilling in the reader a sense of excitement, dread, and urgency. Falling action. This is when the tension has been released and the story begins to wind down. We start to see the results of the climax and the main character's action and get a sense of what this means for them and the world they inhabit. How did their choices affect themselves and those around them? Denouement. This final plot point is when everything has been wrapped up and the new world and the new sense of normalcy for the characters has been established. The conflict from the climax has been resolved and all loose ends have been neatly tied up. Conflict. In a short story, the conflict is a conflict between two people or things. Typically, the main character is on one of the opposing sides of the central conflict. On the other hand, the main character may be fighting another important character, nature's forces, society, or even something within himself or herself, feelings, emotions, illness. There are two types of conflict. One is internal and the other is external. Internal. Struggle within one's own mind. Self versus character. Struggles with one's own soul, physical constraints, decisions, and so forth. External. Struggle with a force not of one's own. Character versus character. Conflicts with other characters. A short story's theme is the central idea or belief. It is also the central message, moral of the story, and underlying meaning of a fictional piece. It may be the author's thoughts on the subject or point of view on human nature. Examples of common themes occurring in literature, on television, and in film are: things are not always as they appear to be. Love is blind. Believe in yourself. People are afraid of change. Don't judge a book by its cover. That you are all aware about the elements of the short story, let's now have an application of what you have learned by identifying the elements of the short story, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Since you have been introduced to the story of Snow White in our storytelling earlier, we can now dive into identifying the elements of the story. First, who are the characters in the story and which type of characters do they belong to? Yes, that's right. The characters are Snow White, protagonist, round character, because she learned and grew at the end of the story. The Evil Queen, antagonist, dynamic character, because when Snow White's father is still alive, she was sweet and loving. But when he died, she became the evil stepmother. The Prince, flat character, has only one characteristic. The Magic Mirror, static and flat character, because he did not change till the end and has only one characteristic. The Seven Dwarfs, round and static characters. Now, let's move on to identifying the setting. Where do you think the story happened? Excellent! The story takes place in a forest-covered kingdom. Society was divided into monarchies and lower classes. Winter is introduced at the start of the story. Third, we would be assessing the conflict. What do you think is the conflict or problem of the story? Very good! The queen's desire to murder her stepdaughter is the central conflict in Snow White. That's how Snow White ended up living with the seven dwarfs. When the queen discovers that Snow White is not dead, the story action picks up. Jumping onto the plot, let us identify the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the denouement or resolution of the story. Fantastic! You correctly identified the plot of the story. Exposition. The author explains how Snow White was born and why she was given that name. Snow White's mother dies shortly after giving birth to her. Rising action. Snow White grew up to be even more beautiful than the queen herself. When the queen discovered that Snow White was the most beautiful person in her kingdom, she decided to kill her. Climax. Snow White had barely bitten into the poisoned apple when she died. She cannot be awoken by the dwarfs. Falling action. Snow White was awoken by the prince's kiss. resolution, or the Noma. After waking up, Snow White fell in love with the prince and lived happily ever after. Lastly, let's identify the theme. What do you think is the central idea of our story? Correct! Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs' most important theme is that true beauty comes from within. No matter what happens in life, people will always find support and assistance from someone. And that's how you identify the elements of the selected text. Give yourself a round of applause for being able to identify elements of the short story.
Are you still awake? Have you fully understood our lesson for today? I hope you all did, because I'm going to test whether you have learned or not. Get a pen and paper and let's proceed to the quiz.
Here are the directions for today's quiz. Read and identify the correct answer on the sentences below. Number your paper from 1 to 5 and write your answers only. You have 8 to 10 minutes to complete this task. Time's up! Now we are going to check your quiz for today. I'm going to let you check your own quiz, but keep in mind that honesty is the best policy. How many points did you get? If you scored 3 to 5 points, very good! It seems that you really learned a lot. If you scored lower than 3 points, you don't need to worry because you can still rewatch this video for you to be able to get a better score or even a perfect score.
That's all for today's discussion. Hope you learned something. Once again, I am Rachele Ann Gervacio and this is Adventure TV. Thank you everyone. Have a great day and stay safe. See you in our next lesson.